Hi, I'm Christopher Joy, and today we're comparing some of the most popular pet food brands of 2021. How foods compare are one of the most common questions we get, and I admit it can be daunting at first, but here are a few things I always look at when looking at pet food. First is the ingredient panel. Pet food is listed in order of weight of the ingredients before it's cooked, dried, or frozen. So everything towards the top of the panel will be the most of what's in the food. But heads up, often companies know that people look towards the top. So beware of window dressing. An example is that companies put an ingredient like chicken in front of chicken byproduct meal on the list. When you remove the water weight during cooking, the chicken will fall down the ingredient list. This can be misleading of how one may see a food's quality. On that note, remember the difference between chicken and chicken meal is the moisture content. Chicken will be about 30% moisture, where chicken meal is about 10%. So chicken meal is more protein dense and can carry 300% more protein than just chicken. This does apply to all ingredients listed as a meal. Also note the starches used. Ingredients such as corn and wheat are less digestible than rice, barley, oatmeal, peas, tapioca, or pumpkin. I also note the guarantee analysis. Often we can find a food that may fit a dog's individual needs. I personally prefer pet food to be of lower carbohydrates, high calories, and high meat inclusion, making for a diet that will absorb more of the nutrients while feeding less. Dogs typically don't do as well with higher carbohydrates, making for dogs that may become more obese, making food harder to digest, causing inflammation and more. I also like to see chelated minerals and great vitamin packs. Chelated minerals have been proven to increase bioavailability by anywhere from 5 to 15%, but does cost significantly more to the manufacturer. Also, there is no need for dyes in pet food. Companies put dyes to make the food more appealing to you, but it can be unhealthy for your dog to have it in their system day after day. But feeding your dog the best diet is tailored to you and your dog. What works for one dog may not work for another, even if it's the same breed. Take time to read labels, research the company that you want to work with, and understand what you're feeding. And find the best quality food that you and your budget can work with. Also, look at your dog and pay attention to them. They'll often be telling you what they need by their coat, stools, and their energy. The first food we're going to look at is Pedigree. Pedigree uses whole grain corn, meat and bone meal, corn gluten meal, animal fat preserved with BHA and citric acid, and BHA is a known carcinogen, followed by soybean meal. This shows a corn-based food without a quality meat source. What is meat and bone meal? That means they did not discern between beef, pork, chicken, etc. And because of that, it's pretty indicative of the quality. Soybean meal will bump the protein, but dogs will always do better with an animal protein, and soy is often an allergen. Judging off the first 5 ingredients, this is a very low quality food, but always make sure you look further down the line as well. We see more wheat, byproduct meals, and artificial dyes. Pedigree does not use chelated minerals either. Pedigree is made with very modest amounts of protein and fat as well, and after looking at the guaranteed analysis, we see that it has 21% protein and just 10% fat. It's very carb heavy and made with little meat. Meat and fat will supply the calories, and after seeing that this food has only about 309 calories, you're going to be feeding plenty of it. Pedigree also does not make any claim to how they source either. They do focus on being affordable, so it depends on how you view it. They follow the California Supply Chain Transparency, which is more of a focus on human rights, which is still important. Overall, Pedigree is using many plant-based proteins that will often cause sensitivities, poor choice of animal proteins, and the ones that they have, very little. Without chelated minerals, 5 to 15% of the nutrition is also lost. Plus, their use of dyes really don't have a purpose in pet food. Iams Mini Chunk Dog Food. The first 5 ingredients are chicken, ground whole grain corn, ground whole grain sorghum, chicken byproduct meal, and dried beet pulp. Without the water inclusion, chicken will actually slide further down the ingredient panel. Corn is not digestible, and the inclusion of sorghum is fine, and it's not likely to cause an allergic reaction, and will be more digestible than wheat, as well as being rich in vitamin. The next ingredient is chicken byproduct meal, which is an inferior protein to not having as much muscle meat, but it's typically purchased pretty affordably. Beet pulp will be a source of fiber and at times can be a controversial ingredient to some. I don't mind seeing it as long as it's in a moderate amount. At 25% protein, 14% fat, and 380 kilocalories per cup, Iams will be a notch above Pedigree, but again, it's a plant-based food, and typically I tell people you want your calories to be as much from meat as possible. This food is on the carb-heavy side and just uses very moderate amounts of meat. Also, it appears to use a non-chelated mineral pack, making the minerals harder to absorb. Iams also doesn't make any claims to sourcing on their ingredients, but do follow the California Supply Chain Act, which has a focus on human rights, not so much the sourcing aspect. Overall, Iams is a plant-based pet food with moderate amounts of animal-based protein and without chelated minerals. I like to see much more meat and lower carbs. This food seems to be a little bit on the opposite. It also contains caramel coloring, which has no purpose in pet food. The next is Proplan chicken and rice. The first 5 ingredients are chicken, rice, whole grain wheat, poultry byproduct meal, and soybean meal. Without the water inclusion, chicken will reduce the meat content to a small amount once cooked, leaving wheat as likely the first ingredient. Poultry byproduct meal is going to be typically chicken or turkey, but of a lower quality. Often people will say that byproduct meal does include the healthy parts of a chicken, turkey as well, but I always let people know that it's more of an indicator of low quality. Most companies want to separate those. Soybean meal is just a protein bumper without much nutritional value in dogs and also may cause sensitivities. For what it's worth, further down we do find more corn and more wheat. I also see that they use glycerin, which is a natural sweetener, but it also can be used to keep up the moisture content of the food. We can see that Proplan has 26% protein and 16% fat and about 387 kilocalories per cup. With its protein and fat being good, we do see of a bulk of it coming from plant protein. In my opinion, a food should typically have a higher calorie count with these fat and protein levels. Keep in mind it also uses 12% max moisture instead of the industry standard of 10%. This will change how the guaranteed analysis reads. The food does have chelated minerals, so that will be a plus. Chelated minerals will always increase the absorption of essential minerals, so that is always a positive instead of passing off the minerals as waste. I do like to see the use of fish oil in pet foods, but I do prefer to see a named fish, such as salmon. Proplan is going to be a plant-based food that derives its protein from questionable sources. We applaud Purina for using chelated minerals and having sustainability initiatives, but I find the choice of proteins Purina uses to be a poor carrier, and their carbohydrates they use are inferior to what years of research and science have to say. There are easily more digestible foods available. Plus, the use of corn, wheat, and soy really aren't needed in a modern pet food. Science Diet adult chicken and barley. The first 5 ingredients in the Science Diet recipe are chicken, cracked pearl barley, whole grain wheat, whole grain corn, and whole grain sorghum. Again, chicken, not chicken meal, is the first ingredient, indicative of the window dressing that we mentioned before. Barley is a positive, but wheat and corn that follow really don't offer much for nutrition, but they'll bump the protein up in the bag, but not in the way we want, and are also linked to sensitivities. They're going to be harder to digest as well, causing inflammation in the stomach. A note on corn, wheat, and soy is that they can be typically low quality, causing a myriad of other issues. I note that companies like corn, wheat, and soy because they're cheap and abundant. The Science Diet food comes in about 20% protein and 11.5% fat with 363 kilocalories per cup. It makes sense considering this food sports a low amount of animal protein. Their use of corn, wheat, and soy further down the list also shows that it's most likely going to be a bulk of the food. A nutritionist once told me you need to put 30 pounds of something in a 30-pound bag. It seems that Hills chose 3 problematic ingredients focused around cost before quality. The minerals do not appear to be chelated either. Hills does appear to be focused on the environment, but they don't make any claim that we could find about how they source their product. Science Diet is a plant-based food with plant-based proteins as a bulk of their ingredients. They seem to be without a focus on the minerals and have limited animal protein. I'm not partial to any food that uses corn, wheat, soy, or byproducts when healthier ingredients are available that do not increase sensitivities and will be easier to digest. Northwind's Premium Haven Sunseeker. The first 5 ingredients are chicken, chicken meal, grain sorghum, millet, and turkey meal. Chicken is the first ingredient, but with it being 30% moisture instead of 10% compared to chicken meal, it may not be the true first ingredient, but they use chicken meal right after, and even after cooking the chicken, it remains in the top 5 ingredients, making 3 of the first ingredients a named protein source. Following chicken is chicken meal, sorghum, a gluten-free grain that promotes smooth blood sugar, as well as millet, a hyperglycemic grass that is rich in fiber, followed by turkey meal, another concentrated source of protein. With 28% protein and 16% fat and 562 kilocalories per cup, this is truly a biologically appropriate diet that is meant to mirror a dog's ancestral diet. This food is also enhanced with coconut meal, salmon oil, called liver oil, as well as hip and joint support. For digestion, it is rich in fruits and vegetables, as well as turmeric to help with any inflammation in the gut. 84% of the protein is derived from animal sources and 16% from vegetable sources. Haven Sunseeker uses chelated minerals for maximum absorption, as well as taurine for heart health. Northwind's Haven is a gluten-free, GMO-free, and responsibly sourced as well. Haven does this by working with smaller companies to ensure quality control from start to finish, ensuring a food that is not only healthy, but consistent in the same source, as well as being safe for your pet. Northwind's Premium is a unique recipe as it hits so much of the criteria of stomach care, coat care, joint care, while delivering on a calorie-rich diet. It is responsibly sourced and without any common allergens that companies use in pet food. Through its use of named proteins and being a protein-based foods, its goal is to have you feed less and get more out of your dog. Remember, at the end of the day, the best food is the food that is best for your dog. Remember, every dog is different, and there are many foods that work well with many different dogs, even in the same age, breed, and even out of the same litter. Keep an eye on your dog's coat, their energy, and even their stools, so you can get that feedback to make a more informed decision. Read labels, educate yourself, and you'll find how foods stack up for you. Make sure you research the companies as well, as that can be a large indicator of how foods are made and the quality they look to achieve. It can also say a lot about how they use their ingredients, their sourcing, and their goals. Our goal at Pets Plus and Northwinds is to have the best products for your pet and to make the best products for your pet. To make the formulas we do, we were able to work with the best nutritionists, the best companies, and listen to our amazing customers to make products that pet lovers would feed proudly. Your pet and your trust are important, and that's why we do what we do.